So a meal or snack prior to training that has a little bit of protein and carbohydrate source. The biggest emphasis I can say there is the carbohydrate source. So a couple of examples there would be egg on toast, cereal with milk, up and go, a supplement with the protein and the carbs in it. So like you can get dextrose powders, you can get a whole world of other carbohydrate powders out there as well. Okay, so that's for weight gain or muscle or maintenance, okay, muscle maintenance. For weight loss, little bit different, okay? Have a small snack if going into your resistance training. So that might be a small piece of fruit. I generally go with like the half a banana, depending on who the person is who I'm talking to. Or if you're doing a cardio and you feel good with an empty stomach, that kind of thing, that's okay to do as well. Really play around with how you feel. Try some caffeine and a small piece of fruit. Again, really dependent on you. Some people can't do anything before training. Some people like to have something sitting in their stomach to be able to train at their full capacity. And caffeine, that works differently for everyone as well. But the take-home message is, if you want to gain some muscle mass, making sure you, probably even a meal, like an hour before, is the ideal that I find for a lot of people who want to gain some mass. And then, yeah, something smaller if your goal is to lose some body fat. Is there any questions on that? I am going to go through a few other options.
Just a question on the carbohydrates.
Yeah.
Just so people know, because some people cut carbohydrates out completely.
Yep.
What is the minimum carbs per day they need to have for brain function?
For brain function, I wouldn't go any less than So I wouldn't go any less than like 15 grams per meal. If you're going less than that, you're going to be really angry, you're going to get sugar cravings, you're going to get really hungry as well, and then brain fuzziness towards the end of the day for sure. You know, if you've gone low carbohydrate at 2 o'clock, that's when you get really brain foggy. It's when you go to it's like the vending machine hour, pretty much. There's like a line there because you've had really low carbohydrate. And you're trying to do that to lose a little bit of weight, but in turn, all these sorts of cascade of effects happen, and therefore you actually do yourself a disservice in your meal, in your preparation.
So that 15 grams of carbohydrate, is that equivalent into real life food?
Yep. So one piece of bread is around, like they come in majorly different sizes, but around 15 to 20 grams of carbohydrates in a piece of bread. Fruit, rice, it's in stacks of things. So
it's really, it's there, it's not a large amount.
No, not at all. Yeah, it's 15 grams of carbohydrate is not a large amount. As an example, for a male, if they wanted to gain some mass before a training session, I'd tell them to have between 50 to 80% of their body weight. So if someone weighed 100 kilos, I'd want them to have 50 to 80 grams of carbohydrates before a session if their goal was to gain some mass. Okay, so to put it in perspective, it is quite a small amount. And to be honest, at 15 grams, you're probably even going to experience some of those things as well. Some ideal pre-workout snacks might be like a medium banana, a low-fat coffee. The lactose in coffee, ose on the end, indicates sugar, so that's carbohydrate. Fruit-flavoured yogurt, fruit-flavoured because that will have a little bit more carbohydrates in it than what like a plain Greek would. Dried fruit. 1 cup of popcorn, couple of like rice cakes or your corn thins with some honey and peanut butter, 1 slice of toast with some jam or honey, or like a small glass of like orange juice or something like that. All of those things give what we call quick release carbohydrates. They're not ones that are going to sort of slowly release in your body over a long period of time, like really grainy bread would or something like that, or like brown rice. Things like jam and honey, really quick release into the body, okay? So if you have that within your half an hour of a workout, what happens is you get to absorb that really quickly and then you can use it for energy pretty much straight away, okay? So there's a difference in carbohydrates. Has anyone heard of low GI and high GI? Yeah. Does everyone understand what that means? No? Can I use this whiteboard? Yeah? So just really quickly, make sure that is whiteboard. I've been stuck before. Okay. So, low GI and high GI. So I'm going to do high GI first. So if I had a piece of white toast with honey on it or jam, high GI. What that's going to do to your blood sugars, this is really high blood sugar, this is really low blood sugar. What it's going to do, a high GI food, is it's going to spike your sugars really quickly for a short period of time and then plummet, okay? So that's good for a training session. So a training session that lasts about an hour, it's going to be in your system for about an hour. You're going to get maximum amount of glycogen in your cell to be able to be used as energy. Let's talk brown rice or really grainy bread. That's low GI. What that's going to do is release into your body slowly at an amount we can absorb just over a period of time, give you a sustained release of energy. So this is something that you'd have in the morning if you were having really dense grainy toast and you were going to work and you weren't training until the afternoon. Awesome, because that's going to give you a sustained release of energy. It's not going to spike your blood sugars to an amount that's giving you the jitters and things like that. Okay, it's the amount that your body can slowly absorb over a long period of time because it doesn't need that extra energy. Spike, we need the extra energy. You feel it when you train. You need all the energy you can get. Does that make sense? Does anyone have any questions? Yeah? Let's go for it.
Would you recommend a type 2 diabetic doing that though?
No. No, type 2 diabetes is very, very different. That'd be a lot more specific. So type 2 diabetics, they can't absorb. So there's an insulin absorbs the glucose in the body and they're not as effective at producing the insulin. So their absorption, not as good. So when someone without diabetes trains, you can absorb all of this because your insulin's working to bring it all into the cell. But without that, without the insulin, it's floating around in our bloodstream, not being used and keeping our sugars up at an unsafe level, okay? So very, very different. So that's when it needs to be a lot more personalised to you. We might go with something like a banana and a handful of nuts. The fat in the nuts actually slows the absorption of the carbohydrates into the body, so that lowers the GI of it, or it'll bring it down a little bit, okay? So very different depending on your health conditions, okay? Good question. Yep. Yep. No, whenever you're ready, shoot away.
So if you're trying to lose weight,
Yep.
Body fat, so would you put the low-fat versions into the yogurt and...
Yeah, you could do, because that's going to decrease your overall calorie intake for the day.
Yeah.
So a low-fat version would be fine.
Yeah.
Yep.
Wouldn't that be higher in sugar though? Because when they take the eggs out, they replace with something.
Yeah.
So it's a bit of a tricky one.
Exactly, but if it's before a training session, then that's fine because you're going to use up those sugars anyway, or the carbohydrates. So before a training session, very different to if it was like 8 o'clock at night and it was like as a dessert sort of style. Very, very different. While I'm on it, dessert sort of style, not flavoured, I'd go with like a plain Greek and then add your own berries because they're very low in sugar, low in carbohydrates, so that's a good option to have before bed if your goals are to lose a little bit of weight. Cool? Okay, weight loss before a session. So like I said, maybe a small piece of fruit and a coffee, heavy resistance, the fruit for sure. During, water is the only necessary thing that you need during, okay? We'll get onto some more things at the end, which will contradict what I say there, but that's fine, at least I'm saying that I'm going to contradict myself. Afterwards, some protein and some carbohydrates. Protein to restore those muscles, to build them back together again, carbohydrates to help that happen. Okay, cool. Weight gain. So beforehand, protein and carbs, that might be in the source of like one of those protein and carbohydrates, like an up and go. That's an easy way to go about it. That's going to give you carbohydrates and protein. It might be just breakfast. It might be an afternoon snack. Those kinds of things. Just incorporate both of those. During training, water. Some people like to drink things like BCAAs during their session. At the moment, there's not super solid evidence for that, but I have seen people have good results from having it. So literally the stuff that's published hasn't been fantastic, but I have seen a lot of people have some decent results depending on your level of training and everything like that, okay? Afterwards, carbohydrates and protein. You're probably going to need a little more carbohydrates. That protein requirement, like I said, no more than like the 25 to 30 grams at that time. So if you're on the run, might look like a piece of fruit and a protein shake. If you've got time, ideally a meal would be the best thing to have, okay? Meals generally have protein and carbohydrates in them. So if you're going home after a workout at night, if you're going to get that protein and carbohydrates in within an hour, perfect. Dinner is ideal. Okay. So pretty much exactly what I just said, combination of carbs and protein. So it restores the levels of protein and carbs that are stored in the liver and replaces fluids and electrolytes as well. So when we eat foods, pretty much most foods have some sort of water in them and electrolytes coming from salts that are in our foods as well. So that's just going to help replenish everything. And it's going to start that adaptation process, that growth process in our muscles to create that lean tissue. How much and when with protein? Get asked this all the time. So every 3 to 4 hours for muscle maintenance and growth, we need to be having some protein. Very independent on who you are, but so an average person, between the 20 to 25 grams it would be, okay? Any more than that, and our bodies literally can't absorb it, like protein up to like the scoops that you sort of get in your protein powders and things like that, 30 grams, that's pretty fine. Any more than that, and it creates really expensive whey. We excrete a lot of it, okay? So more than that, really unnecessary. The reason that you need to have it every 3 to 4 hours and not just immediately after your training session is because your body is repairing itself from that one training session for 24 to 48 hours afterwards, okay? So if we want to come back to the gym the same time the very next day, we really need to eat protein and carbohydrates, but mostly protein, every 3 to 4 hours for that muscle repair to happen. Don't be setting alarms on your phone to wake you up at 3 o'clock to have the protein. Just some at night before you go to bed or like dinner is fine, okay? But regularly while you're awake throughout the day, really, really important, okay? What does 20 to 25 grams look like though? It's about 100 to 150 grams of chicken breast or red meat. It's around 150 grams of tuna or fish. 200 grams of high protein yogurt. So when I say high protein, look at the per 100 side in the yogurt, and if it says around the 10 grams per 100, that's a good quality protein, good quality yogurt. Okay, 500 mils of low-fat milk, 60 grams of low-fat cheddar cheese, or 3 eggs. So there's around 6 grams of protein per 1 egg, depending on your size. If you get the small ones, you're going to need more than 3, okay? So that just gives you an idea of what it looks like, because I can say 20 to 25 grams all day, but it needs to be said in like proper food terms. So how am I going for time? Pretty good. Navigating the speed bump. So let's just run through this. So there's actually a difference between like hunger, appetite, and satiety. So hunger is the physiological drive to find and eat food. So hunger is you really wanting the food, it's you thinking about food. It's not necessarily that feeling, it's the feeling in your stomach that's hunger, that churning feeling, okay? It's actually really important to recognize this because it's something to think about at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Am I actually hungry? Think about that next time you sort of go and think, I'm going to have a snack. Appetite. So that's the psychological drive to find and eat food, often in the absence of hunger, okay? So that's you going, it's 3 o'clock, that's when I have my snack. Do you actually need the snack, or is it you just thinking about it so much that you're creating the feeling of hunger that's not actually there? And satiety. That's just what happens when we eat and we no longer have that feeling of hunger, okay? So the satisfaction from eating something is satiety. I say this because we don't often think about it. We don't often recognize these feelings. Like I said before, need to eat protein every 3 to 4 hours. Awesome. But does your body recognize those feelings of hunger, or are we just programmed? Like if I said, what time is lunchtime? Exactly, 12 o'clock. Why? Like why 12 o'clock? It's just when we're programmed to eat. So getting in touch with your hunger cues is a really good, it's actually the first step in towards a lot of your goals a lot of the time, okay? It's particularly weight loss goals, really important. Okay, common reasons for non-hungry eating, so you don't have that feeling in the pit of your stomach of actual hunger. There's a lot there, but this is the ones that I see most. So I've just harped on about the clock, but not eating properly around training, probably number one. The number one thing that I see. And confused with thirst and hunger. That's the other one. Who often feels at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I definitely need some sugar. Like I've got sweet cravings. 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Yep? Self-confessed? Cool. So that's probably because generally I see it's because trained in the morning, protein shake afterwards, really busy lifestyle, and I'm off to work. No carbs. Didn't replace with carbs. Lunchtime came around, I had a wrap that had about 30 grams of carbs in it, but your body's still playing catch up from the morning when you didn't have enough carbs. 3 o'clock in the afternoon comes around, and your brain is telling you that I've run out. The brain can only run off carbs, and I've absolutely run out. So the brain also knows that the quickest absorbed carbs, like that spike one, did you notice all of the ones that I said on the spike were like jam, honey, those kinds of things? The brain knows that the quickest absorbed ones come from sweet sources. And we don't go, oh, I'm really craving a banana, like sugar. That's what the brain wants. So if you've given your body proper nutrition after training, given your body the right amount of carbs that it needs, your body's absorbed that, it's thanked you for it, it's gained some muscle mass. Lunchtime felt good, was able to have my wrap that had 30 grams of carbs in it. Afternoon tea, feeling good because my brain's not depleted of carbs. So it really is making sure that you're consistent throughout the day that's going to stop something from happening in the afternoon. Okay? So that's the one that I see all the time. Confusing thirst with hunger. I do something that's called mindful eating, and might get an eye roll, that kind of thing, but it works. So a lot of the time you can sit down and say to yourself, okay, it's 3 o'clock, I'm hungry, but are you? I want you to think about, on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being starving, haven't eaten in a day, 10 being Christmas Day stuffed. Where do you actually sit? Where do you sit when you're sort of thinking about that? No one ever thinks about it. I never want you to be Christmas Day stuffed other than on Christmas Day, and I never want you to be starving either. I'd really like people to sit at a happy medium of 4 if they haven't already eaten. After eating, 7 is really good, 7 to 8. So at 3 o'clock in the afternoon when you're like, yep, I'm actually like a 5, I'm definitely not hungry, just recognizing it isn't actually going to stop you from going to the vending machine. So we do a couple of things called delay and distract. So if you can distract yourself for 15 to 20 minutes, then you're probably going to get past the vending machine thing. You kind of go, well, it's actually like an hour and a half now until I go home, so I won't really have a snack now because I've got good ones at home. But the easiest way to delay, big glass of water. I often find that after a big glass of water, you've quenched your thirst, because that was the reason that you were actually craving something in the first place, was because you were thirsty, not hungry. You've hydrated yourself and you've moved on past that 3 o'clock dip, okay? I'm not saying not to have an afternoon snack, not at all. Afternoon snacks, really important. They get me through the day, but choose really good quality ones, okay? Make sure they have some protein in them and some good quality carbohydrates as well. But there are a couple of ways that you can avoid bypassing the vending machine. Does anyone ever try and think about why they're hungry in the afternoon and bypass it, or do you usually just go for the snack option? Yeah, everyone's guilty of it. I am equally as guilty of it. I'm definitely not perfect, okay? But there's a couple of ways you can go about it. It's exactly what I just said, because like I said, I like to go off on a tangent. plan ahead and have some food on hand. So have the top of the snack drawer, the snacks in the top of the drawer handy, have ones in the lunchbox or the esky handy. If you've got good snacks available, you don't have any other choice.